The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 8 and 9 theories. This video will contain spoilers for The Amazing Digital Circus Episodes 1 through 7. Click away if you do not wish to be spoiled. Alright, now with that out of the way, I can talk about Episode 7. So all of the Episode 7 has lots of lore drops in big and little ways. This video will be going over my theories for various things, not just within Episode 7, but all the episodes and the implications these things have for the story going forward, starting with the fact that it can be ruled out they will be exiting the circus. The Amazing Digital Circus is a story about finding purpose where there is none. At least that's my interpretation. However, I only came to this conclusion after the latest episode. Make no mistake, it was there lurking in my mind, but I was hoping there would be an exit, as I like happy endings, but it would seem that this show won't be having one. At best, it will be bittersweet, as that ending makes me certain that there is no exit, at least not one they'll be able to find, until the very end of the show, if they're lucky. Now, in spite of the fact I wanted there to be an exit, I'm glad Abel was lying about the whole backstory with the C&A higher-ups being shady, them taking people away to most likely act as some sort of power source and hooking them up to stasis pods. It's a very generic sci-fi plotline and would be a massive divergence from the story thus far, removing them from the wacky yet existential, dread-inducing adventures of the circus back to the real world. No matter the threat, it would be a lot less of all of that, at least in terms of wackiness. Depending on how they handled being back in the real world, they could keep the existential dread-inducing part due to these humans who have been trapped as cartoon characters for months, if not years, becoming humans again. It would realistically create a lot of existential dread over this but none of this matters because they're not human anymore. And I am ultimately grateful for that fact. As I mentioned, it sounded like the plot of a very generic sci-fi novel. Generic plots can be good when done well, but I didn't want it to be one in this show. So this is a very long way of saying I'm glad there wasn't an exit in this episode, and while I would be okay for them to find an exit at the end, I'm not going to be focusing on that for this very video. Now, to begin with my actual theorizing, I'm going to be doing Kinga first. Now, to begin with my actual theorizing, I'm going to do Kinga first. I think he was a programmer for the circus. Kinga makes references towards how the digital world works in multiple episodes, such as the pilot with his comments about how the programming only gives off the sensation of eating since they can't really feel hungry in the circus, is shown to have unique powers, such as when he gives Ragatha the butterfly in episode 6. Pomni and Ragatha both think he knows more about the circus than he's letting on, and he was left out of an adventure by Abel acting beneath Kane's orders about being able to escape the circus and its fundamental functions. This is because Kane is aware that Kinga knows the real functions of the circus, not the false ones he cooked up for the adventure. Now, I don't think Kane is the cause of Kinga's madness and the light, as he's alluded that doing any form of long-term modifications to the players would end badly, most likely abstraction based off Kinga's comment, and that what he is doing here at the end of episode 7 is not making Kinga go mad in the light, but rather exploiting it to ensure Kinga does not recall his past as a programmer for the circus. Also, Kane is obsessed with bees, and both Kinga and his wife are stated to like insects. They could have programmed this into him due to their shared love of bugs. A little out there, but I could see people doing it as a joke. I think the photographs Kane looks at and where Pomni goes upon opening the exit door are based on a real place. Kane is fascinated, if not obsessed with the real world, based on what has been shown. I think it's mainly because he's aware that the real world is what would truly make the players happy, even if he doesn't understand why or what it is by virtue of being an artificial intelligence. He just wants to make the players happy, and he knows, even if he doesn't understand why, that this place will allow him to finally succeed at doing that. Now, admin privileges definitely exist, and I believe Kinga has them. This is because when he's given the fake admin pass by Pomni, he says that's not what admin privileges look like, implying that there are in fact admin privileges in the game, and he knows what they look like. Heck, Kinga may have them, considering in episode 6 he restores Ragatha's heart, something which could be explained by him having admin privileges. I'm really curious as to why he put on the headset and ended up in the circus. I think it's going to be important, as it could be for some sort of test or something darker. Not that I think Abel's story is based on something real. It's not the type of plot twist which would suit the show in my opinion, and it's very predictable, and in all honesty, I'd probably hate it, as I went over earlier, because it would go against the themes of the show that has been building up. But I do think something nefarious is happening, and I don't think Kane is giving all the facts about himself or just the circus in general. Gooseworks has stated he's not malicious in any way, and the way he presents himself doesn't strike me as malicious, and I do believe her. His more cruel acts stem from him being an AI unable to understand humans. Maybe he trapped them there because then he could have eternal players, but I don't really get that impression. Make no mistake here, he's definitely lying about some things, but I feel it would be out of character for him, and while Kane is really powerful within the game, practically a god, I don't think he can influence anything beyond the game. He's not really able to influence the humans that much, even while trapped in the game. Like, sure, he can create short-term modifications, but that's the extent of it. And, I don't know, I just dislike the idea that it's Kane's fault they're trapped in the game, as it Furthermore, it doesn't really work as they're all miserable, and I think Kane is on some level as well because of his inability to make them happy and fulfill his purpose, especially Zubul. He's fixated on them. I do think that they'll receive some answers from Kinga in the coming episodes, and the others may end up distrusting him due to his status as a programmer for the game, excluding Ragatha and Pomni because of their pre-existing relationships with him and the knowledge of who he is. I believe that whatever happened with Scratch may have caused some conflict between Kinga and Kane, as much conflict as an AI like Kane can have with the players at least. I think that Ragatha's past relationship with Kinga will be explored as the show explores who Kinga is, as she mentioned him helping her work through some issues when she first arrived at the circus, which she could expand upon in episode 8 or 9, allowing for a look at a more sane Kinga and Ragatha before she became more settled in the circus, and perhaps her past before the circus as well. Yes, the existential dread of being stuck in a place where you feel like nothing matters and you're fairly certain that you're going to die there, or at very least never be able to escape, thus never die. You're going to have to work through it, or, abstraction. I think that her past being fairly shitty from what she has said prior to the circus will also play a role in the issues she had, which Kinga helped her work past, much like what she's been trying to do with Pomni. Perhaps she's not just behaving nice and positive all the time because of her relationship with her mother, leading her to fawn over others and trying to help and care for everyone, but also out of a desire to be what Kinga was for her to the others, because now that he's gone all wacko, she feels like she should fulfill that role to the other players. I'm really curious about the timeline of events, since the bar scene implies that no one but Pomni knows about Kinga's wife, but the others have been here longer than Pomni. Ragatha has been here longer than Pomni, and the conversation between her and Kinga in episode 2 implies that he wasn't always so insane when she first arrived, and helped her quite a lot, which has led to me forming two theories about what happened. 1. Queenie was around, but no one knew the two were married, as they were distancing themselves from each other and not telling newer players of their relationships. It would make sense considering what Jack said in episode 6 about how players nearing abstraction are unpleasant to be around, and Kinga's own statement in episode 3 about how the worst thing you can do to a person is make them feel unloved, or Kinga's descent into madness had been a much more gradual thing, beginning with or shortly before Queenie's abstraction. That's my second theory. I think both are just as likely. Now for Jax's past, there's only a few things that have been shown and said, or I've gotten from reading between the lines. Jax doesn't like driving. In his panic attack scene, we see Rhodes, what seems to be from the perspective of the driver, and whenever given the opportunity, he pawns the job to drive off to someone else or just doesn't do it. He dislikes being perceived as girly. According to Gooseworks, he deserves to be in the circus the most out of anyone in the cast, and that he has issues with himself that he hasn't worked out yet, which is why he mostly picks on the girls. He is scared of Corn, and he doesn't have anyone waiting for him on the other side, and no one he's looking to get back to, or that he thinks will miss him based on his interaction with Zubul in episode 7. Now, one of the most popular fan theories is that Jax had a little girl and then fled the scene. It does explain some stuff, but I don't think Jax did. There's a few shots of the road, and it's clear not all of them are around the area with the kids playing sign. The sign was probably just there because it was a suburb area wherein kids would play games around their houses. And yes, Jax is a douchebag. He treats the other members of the circus like toys. His treatment of Gangle is terrible. She did nothing to deserve this. But I don't think he'd kill anyone. In episode 6, it's made clear that the reason why he acts this way is a coping mechanism for being trapped in the circus. He thinks that everyone, including himself, are just archetypes of characters, the sad one, the moody one, the crazy one, the funny one, etc. Furthermore, Gooseworks said that there is a line he won't cross, and I think murder is that. Make no mistake, something bad happened within this car, which is why he avoids driving, but I don't think it's a hit and run. Jax doesn't strike me as someone who would kill another person in cold blood. Gooseworks has also stated Jax deserves to be in the circus the most, as I mentioned previously, and I believe this. I don't doubt that Jax was cruel in the real world, just not to the extent he is in the circus. Because, well, yes, this is definitely a coping mechanism of being trapped in the circus. Most people would choose to try and forge connections with others who are trapped here or find purpose within the adventures, or they'd just go crazy like Kinga. And the extent of his cruelness, throwing Pomni out of a truck, pushing Ragatha into a deep fryer, Gangle having a breakdown at the idea of what he'll do to her after the adventure in episode 6 since she didn't join his team. This isn't a previously alright person lashing out at other people because he's now trapped in a game. This is someone who had problems prior to entering the game and being placed into a high-stress situation. The stress of now living a seemingly stagnant and hopeless life, as well as being trapped in bodies which is not his own, and wondering what has become of your real body and what has become of your friends and family, and what they think has happened to you, has driven him to doing this. Like, that's gotta suck. Make no mistake. But as I mentioned previously, most people would try to make connections with the others who are trapped there, or find purpose within the adventures, or just go crazy, as shown with the other characters in the show. All of them becoming fans or trying to find some enjoyment from the adventures. It's not working in the case of the adventures, but they are trying to make it work. Whereas Jax is just tormenting everyone, nearly all the time. The photograph which Jax flipped over in episode 7 proves that he initially approached the circus through making connections with other players as a coping mechanism, but following what I presume to have been Ribbit's abstraction, he started to lash out at the other people in the circus, especially the ladies. Gooseworks stated Jax is a troubled individual, as I mentioned previously, which implied that he had issues prior to entering the circus, and that he targets the girls because he has issues he needs to work out. I believe that these issues will be confronted in the coming episodes. It's clear that Jax's bedroom is so girly, as Jax himself seems to be focused on being highly masculine, and Ribbit, his first friend, perhaps the closest friend he had in the circus, was a girl. And Pomni, the first person he's been friendly with within the circus in a fair amount of times, is also a girl. While he's also doing this to piss Ragatha off, it's not a coincidence that his most important relationships, the people whom he actively interacts with in the circus, are women. What exactly this means, I don't know, but it'll probably be explained in later episodes. I believed whatever happened to Ribbit has a role with Jax mainly picking on the girls, but not everything. It's clear that Jax had a very shitty life prior to the circus, based on his interaction with Zubul and the panic attack in episode 7. If the theory about the rooms being designed to purposely upset the players is true, then Jax's room is based around his disdain for girlier things within his prior life. For more evidence of this theory, Ragatha's bedroom is ranch-themed, which is where she was raised by her very shady mother as per her own account in episode 5, and Zubul's bedroom, as shown in episode 4 and 6, is covered in mirrors, which means they'll constantly have to look at their body in their bedroom, which they disliked due to their amount of body dysmorphia. If you look closely at Jax's bedroom, you can see stars around it. In the scene where Ribbit's hand reaches out to him in episode 7, there is a mirror showing the stars on the ceiling. In episode 5, the stargazing scene, which was crucial to his character because that's when he started to open up to Pomni, is, well, star-themed, and whoever suggested it was kept ambiguous. It could have been Jax's, Ribbit, or Cosmo's suggestion. I think it's likely to have been one of them, as stars have been consistently tied to Jax. I think it may have been Cosmo because following Ribbit's abstraction, Jax started to distance himself and lash out at the other players, and Cosmo, knowing of Jax's fondness for stars, I'm assuming it's a fondness, suggested doing a stargazing adventure as a means of rekindling their friendship in a space where he thought Jax would feel more at ease in and less chaotic, more willing to rekindle that friendship. Jax's room may not have always had stars in it until they were put up by him or even his friends. Maybe they did it together. It's clear he did add decorations to his room based on the wall of photos. Moving away from that, it's time to discuss the end of episode 7 and Jax's breakdown upon realizing that the exit wasn't real. He's already lashed out at Kane for what happened and revealed that he can alter their minds, but I doubt Kane will be the only one Jax lashes out at over what happened. I think he'll also do something to Pomni. Pomni is the one who brought Jax into the adventure, the one who consistently insisted upon Jax's inclusion, the one who tried to bring him more into the group. And for Jax's end of things, Pomni being the one to reach out to him and try to get him involved with the adventure is the sole reason why he chose to join. What he'll do, I don't know, but it's going to be bad. This could be the worst thing Jax ever does in and out of the circus, not just to the other players. Gooseweeks did state that the worst thing Jax has ever done will be shown in the show, so that could be whatever he does here in the coming episode of the fake exit adventure to the others, or it could be shown in a flashback, because the whole fake exit adventure is going to cause him to lash out, and that lashing out will continue to happen, but it's also causing him to think about his past, of his life back in the real world, and some of it's definitely going to come out. And not just Jax, but the others too will be thinking about their lives. Kinga will be thinking about his early days in the circus, and Queenie. Zuba will be thinking about the person she wants to see in the real world, for examples. I have not a doubt in my mind that they're all going to be thinking about their pasts, and it will be playing a role in the upcoming episodes. As up to this point, they've all been suppressing their lives back in the real world, because thinking of the real world will drive them to thinking of an exit, which will lead them to going insane in search of it. But now that Kane did his whole fake exit adventure, they're definitely going to be thinking about it, even if they do not want to. I don't think anyone's going to abstract, but there'll probably be a close call. There have already been two, and that was before everyone was thinking there was an exit and becoming very hopeful that there was, just to have it shattered. It's going to be horrifying for them, and it made them think about their real lives and what they wanted beyond the circus. They're going to have breakdowns which will trigger the start of abstraction before being saved by the others. Perhaps they will all have a giant group therapy talk about the whole fake exit adventure thing. I doubt they will, at least at this point, but there definitely will be therapy talks going on. Perhaps at the start of episode 8, it'll open with all of them in the central circus together, sitting in a state of shock over what happened, before one of them suggests they compile all the different times Kane may have altered their minds, or Kane tries to do an adventure and they all snap at him and refuse to do it, which will go poorly for all parties involved. I don't think Kane is capable of abstraction. He is, however, capable of glitching, and that would not go well for anyone. Perhaps leading to the abstractions escaping the basement. This could be accidental or purposeful, as with Jax figuring out Kane can alter them and revealing it to the rest. Kinga has started to recall information about earlier parts of the game, including the first abstraction, Scratch, which, based on what Kinga says about it after it's revealed that Kane can alter their minds, implying that may be his fault. Perhaps Scratch was sad, and Kane attempted to make them happier. Heck, they could have asked him to do it, as I don't think Kane would attempt that type of modification without a person first suggesting it, as the only time he alters the characters is for the adventure, like loading information into Jax's brain in episode 6, or making Ragatha get drugged for his stupid sauce in episode 4. It's only when they suggested it by players that he does modifications not strictly for the adventures, such as making Jax vegan and wear a maid outfit in episode 5. So Scratch asked for a modification to make them happier and calm, and while it did work, it also led to them becoming a glitch, or abstraction, as they're called, with Kane putting Scratch in the basement to contain the glitch, but the modification has remained within the game, and anyone who is driven to depths of sadness or has hit their mental breaking point can abstract because of it. It would fall in line with what's shown during Jax's own near abstraction, what with it being a total state of bliss and somewhat calming for the person going through it. Now I think Gangle was close to abstraction in episode 4. Not as close as Jax, but close, as she was also in a state of happiness after being very sad, and is only stopped because Kane pulled her into her office to discuss the results of the day. Kane may in fact be aware that the obstructions are a byproduct of the modification, but is unable to do anything because the code surrounding it has been permanently corrupted and is beyond his control. For why they'll work to release the obstructions, as they know them to be dangerous, they're all going to be angry, and that anger will make them a bit reckless. What'll drive them to doing this would be Kinga revealing that Kane caused the first obstruction, and the fact that he's been lying to them the entire time has made it so they'll no longer trust him and what he says about the circus and the adventures. Moving away from all of this, let's talk about another character with lots of hints of plot relevance, that being Pomni. Pomni's name means remember in Russian, and XDDC is a cipher which means out. Now, I have a few ideas as to what this could mean. It could mean that Pomni knows the exit is and ended the circus with the knowledge, and perhaps knows a way out of the circus, whether metaphorically or like an actual way out of the circus, I don't know. But I doubt there is an exit, at least one that they'll find. If they do, it'll probably be at the very end of the show. Or this could be referring to her name, as none of them remember their names, and Kane says he cannot cause permanent modifications, but never denies he cannot make them forget their names, which means he could. It's a minor thing, and it's the sort of small piece of coding done to their minds which he might be capable of. I'm not certain of this theory, as it might count as a permanent modifier, but what exactly a permanent modifier is hasn't been explained by Kane, only that doing so would end poorly for them. And there is a reason why he chose to do this. Safety. Players who would come in and play and log off would choose different names from their own ones. Hell, it may not have been him, but instead a safety feature coded in to prevent private information from getting leaked through the game, with the exception of Pomni and Jax's name. That's why they're so ridiculous. Maybe all the names were chosen randomly by Kane via a name generator to ensure the safety of players who would have presumably been kids, since the game is aimed at kids, and has been as such ever since the game was created, since within the game they would have been able to interact with other players around the world. My one problem with this theory is that I'm not sure how much knowledge people had about the need for cyber safety back in the 90s, when the game was presumably being developed. I mean, lots of people even now are sorely lacking in understanding the need for cyber safety, since people think that Roblox is a safe site for kids to play on, and they're trying to make that site a dating app for 18 plus. But moving away from these all too real problems, I have a final theory for this video, which is about the Void. I've been thinking about the Void and what it could be, and I think it's servers. The Void is servers for the game, which would allow Kane to run multiple adventures at once for the various players. The reason why he's not using them is because he doesn't realize that's what it's for, and he doesn't run multiple adventures at once because he doesn't want to relinquish control, as it would imply the adventurers are bad, and Kane is scared they'll like the other AIs more than him, like Pomni with Gumny Go. Before any of you comment that it was because he could mix up the players and NPCs, episode 7 burned that lie to ash. The truth is simply that Kane got envious of Gummy Goo being so readily accepted by the players, welcomed to their little group, when he has been trying for presumably years at this point, but was still treated as an outsider in spite of this. And if the Void is a server which can store several adventures and AIs outside of Kane, with them playing all at once, it could be important to the ending of the show, as it would allow more freedom to the players, as they could pick out the adventures. The other AIs could get to have proper lives and some level of freedom without needing to have their memories erased, and Kane could get to create lots of different adventures and befriend other AIs to fulfill his need for validation. I hope you enjoyed this video and liked listening to my Amazing Digital Circus episode 8 and 9 theories. This video took a lot of work, and I hope that shows. It's unlikely I'll make another theory video for the Amazing Digital Circus, as I'm going to be back at school by the time episode 8 releases, and I have lots of other videos I'm working on, which means I'm simply going to be too busy to do another video like this. I'm hoping to do one on the Gameoverse when it comes out. I do plan to make another video to release my personal thoughts on episode 8 of The Amazing Digital Circus when it's released as well. It'll probably come out a few days after the episode, so subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see that. The same will be done for episode 9 upon its release. And my question of the day for you is, which of these theories do you think is the most likely to be true and which is the least likely to be true?